God's faithfulness as a refuge is a profound concept, one that goes beyond simply seeking protection. It is an invitation to find peace and strength in His steadfast love, a love that remains unchanging regardless of the storms we face. In a world filled with uncertainty, where relationships, finances, and even personal health can seem unpredictable, God's faithfulness stands as a constant and unfailing anchor. It is a reminder that even when everything else seems to waver, He remains true. This faithfulness is a shelter, not only in times of great crisis, but also in the quiet challenges we face every day. To understand the fullness of God's faithfulness, we have to look at what it truly means to be faithful. Faithfulness signifies a deep loyalty, a devotion that does not bend or break under pressure. And in God, we find the ultimate example of this loyalty. The Bible describes His faithfulness as a firm foundation, like a rock that cannot be moved. Just as a rock provides stability to those who stand on it, God's faithfulness provides stability to our lives, offering us something solid to cling to when we feel ourselves slipping. It's this unwavering character that allows us to trust in Him, to rely on Him when we have nowhere else to turn. Imagine a fortress, walls thick and unbreakable, built to withstand any attack. God's faithfulness is like that fortress, a place where we can find refuge and security. We may be surrounded by the chaos of life, but within His faithfulness there is peace. It's not the kind of peace that the world gives, which can be fleeting and conditional. Rather, it's a peace that permeates deep within our soul, a peace that assures us we are held and protected. God's faithfulness is this fortress, a place where no fear, no worry, no hardship can reach the depths of who we are when we rest in Him. This refuge is not just about being protected from external harm. It's also about having a place where we can lay down our burdens. God's faithfulness allows us to bring our worries, our fears, and our doubts before Him, knowing He will not turn us away. He invites us to cast our cares on Him because He cares for us. Unlike human relationships where people may grow weary of our problems or fail to understand the depth of our pain, God remains steadfast. His faithfulness means He is always there to listen, to hold us, and to guide us through even the darkest nights. In a sense, God's faithfulness becomes our resting place. We live in a world that demands constant movement, constant striving, and constant achievement. But God's faithfulness tells us we don't have to earn His love. We don't have to perform to keep His protection. His faithfulness is freely given, and it allows us to rest, truly rest, in the knowledge that we are loved and valued. This rest is profound because it liberates us from the need to prove ourselves, allowing us to be still and know that He is God. It's within this stillness that we truly begin to experience the depth of His refuge. God's faithfulness as a refuge does not mean that we are shielded from every hardship. Life will still bring trials, heartaches, and times of suffering. But His faithfulness promises that, even in the midst of those trials, we are not alone. He is there, walking beside us, offering comfort and strength. This companionship in hardship transforms our perspective. We begin to see that His refuge is not merely a place to hide, but a place to grow, a place where we can be refined and strengthened. It is in God's refuge that we learn resilience, where our faith is fortified by His unchanging presence. God's faithfulness also provides us with an identity that goes beyond our circumstances. In Him, we find not only refuge, but also purpose. When we understand that He is faithful, that He has chosen to stand by us no matter what, we are freed from the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and the fear of insignificance. We know that we are His, and that knowledge changes everything. His faithfulness gives us the courage to step out in faith, to face life's challenges with a strength that comes from knowing we belong to a God who will never abandon us. This refuge in God's faithfulness becomes a source of joy, even in difficult times. We may be surrounded by struggles, but in His presence, there is fullness of joy. This joy is not based on circumstances or fleeting happiness. It is a deep, abiding joy that comes from knowing that, no matter what, we are secure in His love. It's the kind of joy that allows us to smile through tears, to hope when hope seems lost, to hold on to peace, even when life is anything but peaceful. God's faithfulness is not just a refuge, it is a source of life-giving joy. Another profound aspect of God's faithfulness as a refuge is the way it binds us to others. When we experience the security of His love, we are empowered to love others more fully. His faithfulness teaches us patience, compassion, and forgiveness, qualities that deepen our relationships and bring healing. As we find refuge in His faithfulness, we also become a refuge for others, extending the love, kindness, and grace that He has shown to us. We are called to be a reflection of His faithfulness, to offer the same loyalty and support to those around us who may be seeking refuge themselves. God's faithfulness as a refuge is not bound by time. His commitment to us does not fade with the years or change with the seasons. This timelessness means that no matter how life evolves, His refuge remains open to us. It's an eternal promise, a safe haven that will be there tomorrow, next year, and forever. This knowledge of His unchanging nature gives us hope, not only for the present, but for the future. We can look forward with confidence, knowing that we have a refuge that will never fail. Trust in God through uncertainty is not a simple task, it is a profound journey that challenges us to let go of our need for control and to surrender to a wisdom greater than our own. Life often presents us with moments that feel beyond our understanding, times when the path ahead is shrouded in mystery and we cannot see where the next step will lead. It's in these moments of uncertainty that trusting God becomes not just an option, but a necessity. Trusting Him means believing that He is working in ways we may not understand, that His plans for us are crafted with perfect knowledge, even if we cannot see the whole picture. When we face uncertainty, it's natural to feel afraid or anxious. Our minds race with questions, trying to predict outcomes and prepare for every possible scenario. But in these moments, trusting God invites us to shift our focus away from the unknown and onto Him, the one who knows all. He sees the beginning and the end. He understands every twist and turn on our journey. While we may be filled with questions, God already has the answers. Trusting Him through uncertainty is an act of faith that acknowledges our limited perspective and embraces His infinite understanding. The process of trusting God in uncertainty can feel like walking through darkness with only a small light to guide each step. We may wish for the whole path to be illuminated, but God often gives us just enough light for the step we're on. This limited vision is a test of our faith, teaching us to rely on Him moment by moment rather than depending on our own plans and strategies. Each step we take in faith builds our trust, reminding us that God is guiding us even when we cannot see what lies ahead. This journey of trust deepens our relationship with Him, transforming our doubts into a stronger reliance on His presence. Trusting God through uncertainty also challenges us to let go of our expectations. We often have a picture in our minds of how our lives should unfold, but God's ways are higher than ours. His plans may look different from what we imagined, and uncertainty is His way of reminding us to release our grip on our own agenda. When we trust God, we surrender our expectations and open our hearts to His will. This surrender doesn't mean we give up our dreams, it means we invite God to shape them according to His purpose. In this way, uncertainty becomes a space for God to work in our lives, transforming our desires to align with His perfect plan. In times of uncertainty, it's easy to feel alone, as though no one understands what we're going through. But God's presence is constant, even when we feel isolated in our struggles. Trusting Him means believing that He is right there with us, walking beside us in every moment of doubt and fear. We may not always feel His presence, but He has promised never to leave us. This promise becomes an anchor for our souls, a source of comfort that grounds us when the waves of uncertainty threaten to overwhelm us. His companionship reassures us that, even in the unknown, we are never alone. The act of trusting God in uncertainty also reveals our own need for control. We often hold on tightly to what we think we can manage, clinging to routines, habits, and plans that give us a sense of security. But uncertainty strips away this illusion of control, forcing us to confront our limitations. In these moments, trusting God means acknowledging that we are not in control and that it's okay to release our grip. This surrender is not a sign of weakness. It's a testament to our faith in a God who holds all things in his hands. As we let go, we make space for his power to work in ways we could never achieve on our own. Another dimension of trusting God through uncertainty is learning to wait on his timing. In a world that values instant results and quick solutions, waiting can feel uncomfortable, even painful. Yet, God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own. Trusting him means accepting that his timeline may be different from what we expected, and that he will bring about his purposes in his time. Waiting is an act of trust that teaches us patience and endurance, qualities that deepen our faith and prepare us for the blessings he has in store. It is often in the waiting that God does his greatest work in our hearts. Trust in uncertainty also strengthens our resilience. Each time we choose to trust God, despite our doubts, we become spiritually stronger. This resilience is not a hardening of the heart, rather, it is a deepening of our faith, a confidence that God will carry us through whatever we face. Uncertainty no longer becomes something to fear, but an opportunity to grow. With each step of faith, our trust becomes more rooted in him, giving us the courage to face future challenges with a steadfast heart. God uses our trials to build this resilience, molding us into people who can weather any storm. Trusting God through uncertainty teaches us to find peace in his promises. The Bible is filled with assurances of God's faithfulness, his love, and his commitment to us. In times of uncertainty, these promises become our refuge, a source of strength and peace that surpasses our understanding. We learn to meditate on his words, letting his truth replace our fears. His promises remind us that no matter how uncertain life feels, God's love and faithfulness are constants we can rely on. This peace becomes our foundation, a steady presence that carries us through the unknown. Trusting God through uncertainty is a witness to others. When people see us navigating life's challenges with faith and peace, it speaks volumes about the God we serve. Our trust in him becomes a testimony of his goodness and faithfulness, encouraging others to seek him as their refuge in times of trouble. Our journey through uncertainty, filled with both struggles and victories, becomes a story that inspires those around us to place their trust in the one who holds our future. Through our example, God's light shines into the lives of others, reminding them that they too can find strength and hope in his unfailing love. God's promises are unbreakable, a foundation we can stand on even when everything else seems uncertain or unreliable. His promises are woven throughout Scripture, each one an affirmation of his unchanging nature and his boundless love for us. They are declarations of his intentions and his faithfulness, assurances that go beyond mere words and extend into eternity. Unlike human promises that may be broken out of weakness, misunderstanding, or change of heart, God's promises are backed by his perfect character. His word does not fail, and his commitments to us are secure, standing strong through time and circumstance. One of the most powerful aspects of God's promises is that they are not contingent upon our actions or worthiness. They are rooted solely in his nature. God is unchanging, a rock that cannot be moved, and because of this, his promises remain firm regardless of the shifting tides of human life. This is not because he overlooks our imperfections, but because his love transcends them. God's unbreakable promises remind us that his plans for us are grounded in a grace that goes beyond our understanding. Each promise he makes is like a signature of his love, an eternal guarantee that he will remain faithful even when we fall short. In the Bible, God's promises are described as a light and a shield, guiding us and protecting us. His promises illuminate our path when the way seems dark, reminding us that he is always present, leading us forward. Just as a light can reveal the next step, but may not show the entire journey, his promises give us enough hope and assurance for the moment we're in. When we trust in his promises, we are not merely waiting for future fulfillment, we are empowered in the present, held by the knowledge that he is already at work. His unbreakable promises give us courage to keep going, knowing that his faithfulness will carry us through. The unbreakable nature of God's promises also assures us that his plans for us are good. When life doesn't align with our expectations, it's easy to doubt or question the path we're on. Yet, his promises reassure us that he has a purpose for every season, every moment of joy, and every trial. God has declared that he works all things together for the good of those who love him. This promise is not just an encouragement, but a truth that reshapes how we see our circumstances. Even in hardship, we can have confidence that God is orchestrating something greater than we can imagine. God's promises also give us a source of hope that is resilient and enduring. The world offers us many promises of happiness, success, and fulfillment, but these are often fleeting and conditional. They depend on circumstances, human approval, or our own efforts, and they can quickly disappear. In contrast, God's promises offer a hope that is not tied to worldly success or failure. It is anchored in him, in who he is. This hope allows us to look beyond temporary setbacks and challenges, focusing instead on the eternal assurance that God's plans for us are filled with his love, wisdom, and provision. The promises of God are also a reminder of his nearness to us. He has promised to never leave us nor forsake us, a truth that remains steady no matter how isolated or lost we may feel. In moments of loneliness or despair, his promise of presence becomes a lifeline, a comfort that tells us we are never truly alone. This promise is more than words. It is a spiritual reality that provides peace in times of uncertainty. When we feel abandoned, we can cling to his assurance, knowing that his presence surrounds us, sustains us, and gives us strength. God's promises inspire us to live with faith and expectancy. Each promise he has made invites us to trust in what we cannot yet see, to believe in his provision before it appears, to hope in his victory even before the battle is won. His unbreakable word calls us into a life of active faith, where we move forward not because we see the outcome, but because we trust the one who does. This faith is not blind. It is grounded in the reliability of God's character and his commitment to fulfill what he has spoken. His promises stretch our faith, teaching us to live in a posture of readiness, believing that his blessings are on the way. The unbreakable promises of God also serve as a shield against fear. Life can be filled with anxieties about the future, about our purpose, and about the unknown. But God's promises remind us that our future is secure in his hands, that he has declared a purpose and a plan for each of us. We don't have to be paralyzed by fear because his promises act as a fortress, a place of refuge where we can find peace. In times of anxiety, we can return to his promises, letting them calm our minds and fill our hearts with his peace. His promises give us the assurance that we are protected, that we are loved, and that we are held. One of the most beautiful aspects of God's promises is that they are both personal and universal. He has spoken promises that apply to all of his children, promises of love, forgiveness, and salvation. Yet he also speaks directly to each of us in ways that resonate uniquely with our individual journey. This combination makes his promises deeply intimate, while also connecting us to a larger family of believers. When we trust in his promises, we join a lineage of faith, a community of people who have experienced his faithfulness throughout history. His unbreakable promises remind us that we are part of something greater than ourselves, a divine narrative woven together by his grace. The unbreakable nature of God's promises assures us of the victory we have in him. This victory is not merely about overcoming temporary obstacles, but speaks to a greater, eternal triumph. God has promised eternal life, a future where there will be no more pain, sorrow, or loss. This promise gives us a perspective that extends beyond the here and now, filling us with hope for what is to come. His unbreakable promises remind us that the struggles of today are temporary, that there is a day coming when his kingdom will be fully realized, and we will be united with him in everlasting peace and joy. Reflecting on past deliverance is a powerful practice, a way of grounding ourselves in the faithfulness of God, as we remember the ways he has come through for us before. Each time we look back and recall moments of rescue, provision, or healing, we strengthen our faith and remind ourselves of his presence in our lives. Life is filled with challenges, seasons of hardship and doubt, but remembering how God has delivered us before becomes a source of encouragement for facing current and future struggles. This reflection isn't merely nostalgia, it is a profound spiritual exercise that reshapes our perspective and deepens our trust in Him. When we reflect on past deliverance, we're often reminded of times when situations seemed hopeless, when it felt like there was no way forward. In those moments, God intervened in ways we couldn't have predicted. Sometimes His deliverance came through sudden breakthroughs, doors opening where we thought there were only walls. Other times it was through quiet, unseen processes that worked in the background, slowly changing circumstances or transforming our hearts. Each instance of deliverance is a testimony to God's sovereignty, His ability to bring light into the darkest places, and to create pathways where there seemed to be none. Reflecting on how God has delivered us also helps us see the depth of His care for us. Often we focus on His big, obvious acts of deliverance, like financial provision or physical healing, but there are countless subtle ways He intervenes in our lives. Perhaps He saved us from situations we didn't even realize were dangerous, or maybe He protected us from making choices that would have led to harm. Each reflection unveils the layers of His care and attentiveness to every detail of our lives. He is not a distant or detached God. He is deeply invested in our journey, constantly working for our good even when we can't see it. Remembering past deliverance also humbles us, showing us that we are not self-sufficient. It reminds us that in times of desperation, when our own resources and solutions fell short, God was the one who stepped in. We are often tempted to rely on our own understanding or abilities, but reflecting on the past reveals that our true source of strength and wisdom is God. This humility is not about feeling inadequate, but about recognizing His greatness, His power to accomplish what we could never do alone. By remembering His deliverance, we become more aware of our dependence on Him, leading us to greater trust and surrender. Each instance of past deliverance adds to a foundation of faith, brick by brick, layer by layer, creating a stronghold of trust within us. When new challenges arise, this foundation becomes our anchor, a reminder that God has been faithful before and will be faithful again. Reflecting on how He brought us through hard times gives us confidence to face the unknown with courage. We don't have to be shaken by fear because we have a history with God, a record of His faithfulness. This foundation enables us to move forward with assurance, knowing that the same God who delivered us before is walking with us now. Reflection also allows us to see the ways God has used past struggles to shape and refine us. Deliverance isn't just about being saved from hardship, it's also about transformation. Many times we emerge from these experiences stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Through each trial, God teaches us, molds our character, and builds resilience within us. Looking back, we can often see how He used even the most painful experiences to bring about growth and understanding. This perspective reminds us that deliverance is not just about immediate relief, but also about long-term transformation that aligns us more closely with His purpose for our lives. Reflecting on past deliverance also opens our eyes to the bigger picture of God's work in our lives. It's easy to focus on one problem or one moment, but when we look back over the years, we begin to see how each instance of deliverance fits together like pieces of a puzzle. God's hand is often more visible in hindsight, and we realize that what seemed random or confusing at the time was actually part of a carefully crafted plan. This awareness deepens our trust, helping us see that even when we don't understand the present, we can rely on the one who sees the end from the beginning. In remembering how God has delivered us, we also learn gratitude. Often we're so focused on our current challenges that we forget to thank Him for the ways He has already provided and protected us. Reflection reminds us of His generosity and care, shifting our hearts from worry to thanksgiving. This gratitude brings joy, a joy rooted in the knowledge that we are loved by a God who repeatedly shows up for us. It transforms our perspective, helping us focus less on what we lack and more on the abundance of His goodness and mercy that has followed us through every season. Reflecting on deliverance also serves as a witness to others. Our stories of God's intervention aren't just for us, they are testimonies that can encourage and strengthen those around us. When we share how God has come through for us, we give others hope that He can do the same for them. Our experiences of deliverance become seeds of faith in others, evidence of His love and power. Reflection, then, is not just a personal exercise, but a way to build up the community of believers, reminding everyone that God's faithfulness is not limited to one person, but available to all who seek Him. Reflecting on past deliverance reaffirms our identity as children of God. Every act of deliverance is a reminder that we are deeply valued, that we belong to a Father who will go to great lengths to rescue and care for us. This identity gives us a sense of security and worth that goes beyond anything the world can offer. Knowing that we are loved and protected by a faithful God transforms how we see ourselves and our lives. It fills us with a sense of purpose, a knowledge that our lives are held in the hands of one who has always been there and will continue to be, no matter what lies ahead. God's faithfulness is active in every step we take, serving as a constant source of support and guidance throughout our journey. It is not a passive or distant presence, rather, it is a vibrant, dynamic force that interacts with our lives in tangible ways. This active faithfulness reassures us that we are not alone, that every moment of our existence is infused with His love and purpose. As we navigate the complexities of life, recognizing this active presence empowers us to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is intimately involved in every detail of our journey. Every step we take in faith is undergirded by God's promises, which serve as both a map and a compass. His word is filled with assurances that guide us, reminding us of His character and His intentions. When we feel lost or uncertain, we can turn to these promises as anchors that ground us in truth. The active nature of His faithfulness means that He is continually working to fulfill these promises in our lives. Each time we step out in faith, we are met with His provision, strength, and guidance, reinforcing our belief that He is actively participating in our journey. God's faithfulness is evident in the way He prepares the way for us. Often we may not see the obstacles that lie ahead, but God, in His omniscience, goes before us, clearing paths and creating opportunities that we couldn't have anticipated. This proactive approach to our journey means that we can trust Him even in the face of uncertainty. He is not merely waiting for us to make the right choices, He is actively orchestrating circumstances to align with His perfect will. By reflecting on the ways He has intervened in our lives, we can gain confidence that He is continually working on our behalf. In the midst of our daily struggles and triumphs, we can also witness God's faithfulness in the relationships He brings into our lives. Every meaningful connection, every encouraging word, and every act of kindness can be seen as manifestations of His love and provision. God often uses people to deliver His promises, acting through them to remind us that we are cared for and supported. These divine appointments are not random, they are intentional acts of faithfulness that God orchestrates to provide encouragement, guidance, and companionship. As we move forward in life, we can appreciate how these relationships are intricately woven into the fabric of His faithfulness. God's faithfulness is active in the lessons He teaches us through both trials and triumphs. Each experience we encounter is an opportunity for growth, transformation, and deeper understanding. When we face challenges, we often discover strengths we didn't know we possessed. God uses these moments to refine our character, deepen our trust, and teach us valuable lessons about His nature. Even in our mistakes and failures, His faithfulness remains steadfast, showing us that His grace is sufficient for every misstep. This active involvement in our growth process reassures us that God is always at work, shaping us into who we are meant to be. As we walk in faith, we also find that God's faithfulness encourages us to step out of our comfort zones. He often calls us to take risks, to pursue dreams that may seem beyond our reach. This active faithfulness ignites a boldness within us, prompting us to move beyond fear and doubt. When we step out in faith, we do so with the confidence that God is walking alongside us, equipping us with everything we need for the journey ahead. It is through these steps of faith that we experience His active presence, witnessing His miraculous work in our lives and the lives of those around us. God's faithfulness is a source of peace in the midst of uncertainty. Life can be chaotic, filled with unexpected twists and turns that leave us feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Yet, when we remember that God's faithfulness is actively at work, we can find rest in His presence. This peace does not depend on our circumstances, it is rooted in our trust in His character. By casting our cares upon Him and leaning into His promises, we can experience a profound sense of calm, knowing that He is in control and working everything together for our good. His active faithfulness reassures us that we do not need to have all the answers, we simply need to trust Him with our journey. God's faithfulness invites us into a deeper relationship with Him. As we recognize His active involvement in our lives, we are drawn to seek Him more fervently. This relationship is not transactional, it is an intimate connection that flourishes as we spend time in prayer, worship, and reflection. The more we experience His faithfulness, the more we desire to know Him and align our lives with His will. This desire fuels our faith, igniting a passion to walk closely with Him, to listen for His guidance, and to respond to His leading. The active nature of His faithfulness creates a cycle of trust and intimacy, where we grow in our understanding of who He is and how He desires to work in our lives. God's faithfulness empowers us to share our experiences with others, becoming vessels of His love and truth. As we reflect on His active presence in our lives, we are compelled to testify to His goodness, sharing the stories of His deliverance and provision. This act of sharing not only encourages others, but also strengthens our own faith. When we speak of God's faithfulness, we reinforce our belief in His promises and invite others to experience the same active presence in their own lives. By living as examples of His faithfulness, we participate in a larger narrative that reflects His love to the world, drawing others to the hope and assurance found in Him. Finding courage in God's ever-present help is a profound journey that transforms our perspective and empowers us to face life's challenges with confidence. In a world often filled with uncertainty and fear, the assurance of God's presence provides a solid foundation on which we can build our courage. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Instead, we have a constant source of strength and support that we can rely on in every moment. This ever-present help isn't just a passive reassurance, it is an active force that inspires us to rise above our circumstances and trust in a power greater than ourselves. At the core of this courage is the recognition of God's faithfulness. Throughout Scripture, we see countless instances where God has intervened in the lives of His people, providing help and guidance when they needed it most. Whether it was the Israelites crossing the Red Sea or David facing Goliath, these stories serve as powerful reminders of how God stands by us in times of trouble. When we reflect on these narratives, we begin to see a pattern of His unwavering support that transcends time and circumstance. This historical faithfulness reassures us that the same God who helped them is actively present in our lives today, ready to assist us when we call on Him. The awareness of God's ever-present help invites us to cultivate a deeper relationship with Him. When we understand that He is always near, we are encouraged to turn to Him in both prayer and praise. This relationship fosters intimacy and trust, allowing us to communicate our fears, desires, and struggles openly. In doing so, we invite His presence into our circumstances, experiencing firsthand the comfort and strength that come from being connected to Him. This active engagement with God not only deepens our faith, but also equips us with the courage to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Finding courage in God's help also means recognizing the power of His promises. God's Word is filled with assurances of His support and presence, serving as a blueprint for how we can navigate life's difficulties. Verses like Isaiah 41:10 remind us that we do not have to fear. For He is with us, we do not have to be dismayed, for He is our God. This promise of His presence dispels fear and anxiety, replacing it with a sense of security. When we hold on to these promises, we find the courage to step out in faith, knowing that God's help is always within reach. God's ever-present help is particularly evident in our moments of weakness. Life can be overwhelming, and there are times when we may feel like we are at the end of our rope. In these moments, it's crucial to remember that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. When we acknowledge our limitations and lean into His strength, we discover a wellspring of courage that empowers us to keep going. This paradox of strength through weakness allows us to experience God's power in profound ways, enabling us to face challenges we once thought insurmountable. Courage also grows in the community of believers, where God's help is often manifested through one another. When we gather with fellow believers, we create an environment where encouragement, support, and prayer abound. These connections remind us that we are part of a larger body, all seeking God's help and strength together. When one member is struggling, others can come alongside them, providing the support and reassurance that can ignite courage. In this way, God's ever-present help is often seen through the actions and words of those around us, reinforcing the truth that we are never alone in our struggles. Finding courage in God's help encourages us to step outside of our comfort zones. When we realize that God is always with us, we become more willing to embrace new challenges and opportunities. Whether it's pursuing a new career, engaging in difficult conversations, or stepping into leadership roles, the knowledge of His presence helps us overcome the fear of the unknown. We can approach these situations with a sense of boldness, knowing that we have the Creator of the universe walking alongside us. This mindset shift opens doors to experiences we may have otherwise avoided, expanding our horizons and deepening our faith. God's ever-present help also instills a sense of peace in our hearts. When we are aware of His constant presence, we can face uncertainties without being consumed by anxiety. This peace allows us to remain calm and focused, even amidst chaos. It is a peace that surpasses all understanding, guarding our hearts and minds as we navigate life's storms. By anchoring our thoughts in the reality of God's presence, we find the courage to remain steadfast, trusting that He will guide us through any situation we encounter. Cultivating courage in God's help means learning to surrender our fears to Him. Fear can often paralyze us, keeping us from taking necessary steps in our lives. However, when we bring our fears before God, we invite Him into our struggles and allow Him to work in our hearts. This act of surrender transforms our fears into opportunities for growth and reliance on His strength. As we release our anxieties, we experience a renewed sense of freedom and courage that propels us forward into the plans He has for us. Finding courage in God's ever-present help is a lifelong journey of faith. It requires us to continually remind ourselves of His promises, engage with Him in prayer, and trust in His character. As we take steps of faith, we will undoubtedly face challenges and moments of doubt, but each experience serves to strengthen our resolve. With each victory, no matter how small, we grow in our understanding of His faithfulness, deepening our courage to trust Him in the future. This journey of discovering courage through God's help shapes us into resilient individuals, empowered to face life with unwavering confidence,